Aloha Nui Patriots, it's Shariraye with the verse of the day, October 15th. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, "Cursed is everyone who hangs on a tree, that the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Jesus Christ, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith." Galatians 3:13-14. The law assured righteousness to all who perfectly obeyed it, Galatians 3 verse 10, but condemned to death all who failed to give it. That perfect obedience, such an obedience was impossible to man, for he is morally imperfect, and moral imperfection cannot possibly render moral perfection. Christ redeemed the believer from that doom because he suffered it himself on the believer's behalf, and thus, at Calvary, affirmed the authority of that law and vindicated its justice and goodness. The law has nothing to do with faith, Galatians 3 verse 12, for it teaches that he who practices its requirements lives by doing them. Christ, in his life, perfectly obeyed all its commands, and in his death, discharged all its claims, and the merits of both his life and death are credited to the believer in him as though the believer himself had performed them. The word redeemed in the Greek is exagorazo, which means to redeem from slavery, to purchase from off the auction block. It carries the idea that such deliverance involves cost of some kind, effort, suffering, or loss to the one who effects the deliverance. It conveys the figure of a ransom. Men needed a ransom, for the law had left them prisoners under sentence of death. In fact, there are three Greek words for redeemed or redemption. They are 1. Agorazo. This word means to purchase from the slave. Market, 1 Corinthians 6 verse 21. Exagorazo. This word means to purchase out of the slave market, never to be put up for sale again in any slave market, which is the word of our present text 1. Lutru. This root means ransom money used to liberate a slave. The idea is such a price has been paid that demons, devils, angels, heaven, or hell will never be able to say in eternity future that the price was insufficient. 1 Peter 1 verse 18, Titus 2 verse 14. The curse of the law is that which the legalistic passages of the Mosaic law pronounced upon those who did not perfectly obey its demands. The law pronounced a blessing and a curse, but the blessing proved barren, for the law made no allowance for human sin and frailty. The curse, which involved the wrath of a righteous God, brought condemnation upon the offender. From this hopeless state of condemnation in which the sinner was not only helpless to redeem himself, but helpless to satisfy the just demands of the law and thus find acceptance with God, Christ redeemed us by satisfying the just demands of the law, which we broke, paying the penalty in our stead, leaving a holy God free to bestow mercy on the basis of justice satisfied. Christ was made a curse, which means that he was not actually cursed by God. The phrase, "Cursed is everyone who hangs on a tree," is taken from Deuteronomy 21 verse 23. Any Jew who committed a heinous crime was first stoned to death and then hung upon a tree as a sign that he was cursed by God. When Jesus died on the cross, he had to atone for the worst sins that could be imagined. In fact, all sin and even the cause of sin, inasmuch as he himself had never sinned and he therefore could not be cursed by God in that capacity, he had to be made a curse, which he was as a substitute on our part. It was the curse of the Mosaic law that descended on Christ, subjecting him to the death of a malefactor. The death of Jesus satisfied the legal demands of the law, and as our substitute, when we identify with him in his death, in which he paid our penalty, the curse of the law is likewise removed from us. Consequently, the cross of Christ is where our redemption took place and did so in totality. Colossians 2 verses 14 and 15. Due to the curse being lifted on all believers, the blessing of Abraham, which is justification by faith, is given to all who believe, which includes the reception of the Holy Spirit, all through faith in the cross of Christ.